नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So let us read. There are only two verses remaining, 36 and 37. And I hope after that yesterday robust discussion of about perceiving the super soul, we must have remembered some times of the day. I guess I did somehow by all of your blessings and association. So it was really nice to think about that verse that we read yesterday night. All right, so let us complete this chapter 36 and 37. Very, very beautiful coming up these two verses, and the next chapter is really wonderful. So someone would like to read? Tasmat sarvatmana. Okay, Prabhu.
Yeah, I can read. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Tasmat sarvatma rajan hari savi sarvatra sarvada strotavya kiri titavyascha smartavya bhagavan rinam. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. O King, it is therefore essential that every human being hear about, glorify, and remember the Super Lord, the personality of Godhead, always and everywhere. Purport. Srila Sukadeva Goswami begins this verse with the word tasmat, or therefore, because in the previous verse he has already explained that there is no auspicious means for salvation other than the sublime process of bhakti yoga. The bhakti yoga process is practiced by the devotees in different methods like hearing, chanting, remembering, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, worshipping, praying, rendering service and love, becoming friendly, and offering all that one may possess. All 9 methods are bona fide methods, and either all of them, some of them, or even one of them can bring about the desired result for the sincere devotee. But out of all the 9 different methods, the first one, namely hearing, is the most important function in the process of bhakti yoga. Without hearing sufficiently and properly, no one can make any progress by any of the methods of practice. And for hearing only, all the Vedic literatures are there, compiled by authorized persons like Vyasadeva, who is the powerful incarnation of Godhead. And since it has been ascertained that the Lord is the super soul of everything, he should therefore be heard and glorified everywhere and always. That is the special duty of the human being. When the human being gives up the process of hearing about the all-pervading personality of Godhead, he becomes victim to hearing rubbish transmitted by man-made machines. Machinery is not bad, because through the machine one can take advantage of hearing about the Lord, but because machinery is used for ulterior purposes, it is creating rapid degradation in the standard of human civilization. It is said here that it is incumbent upon the human beings to hear because the scriptures like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam are made for that purpose. Living beings other than human beings have no ability to hear such Vedic literatures. If human society gives itself to the process of hearing the Vedic literature, it will not become a victim to the impious sounds vibrated by impious men who degrade the standards of the total society. Hearing is solidified by the process of chanting. One who has perfectly heard from the perfect source becomes convinced about the all-pervading personality of Godhead and thus become enthusiastic in glorifying the Lord. All the great acharyas like Ramanuja, Madhava, Chaitanya, Saraswati, Thakur, even in the other countries, Muhammad, Christ, and others have all extensively glorified the Lord by chanting always and in every place. Because the Lord is all-pervading, it is essential to glorify him always and everywhere. In the process of glorifying the Lord, there should be no restriction of time and space. This is called Sanatan Dharma or Bhagavad Dharma. Sanatan means eternal, always and everywhere. Bhagavat means pertaining to Bhagavan, the Lord. The Lord is the master of all time and space, and therefore the Lord's holy name must be heard, glorified, and remembered everywhere in the world. That will bring about the desired peace and prosperity so eagerly awaited by the people of the Lord. The word Sha includes all the remaining processes or methods of Bhakti Yoga, as I mentioned above. Hari Bol.
Yeah.
Beautiful purport, Mataji. Yeah. So again, here it's mentioned about that we should hear and glorify, and so Shravanam, glorify and remembering Smaranam. They are mentioned that we should do this always and everywhere. And Prabhupada mentions that Bhakti Yoga, through Bhakti Yoga, we can attain Krishna. And they out of the nine Vidha process, Navvidha process, Shravanam is the most important. And so if we keep hearing about that Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, we are taste for even chanting. We will be convinced that we should chant. We will be convinced that the chanting is the process to get Krishna. And even all the great acharyas, Ramanuja, Madhva, Chaitanya, and all others, even Muhammad and Christ, they also glorified the Lord everywhere. So this again, we cannot make any progress without sufficiently hearing and chanting. So the gist is that we should always, the emphasis is on hearing and then chanting. And I am remembering that pastime which Vishesha Shobha Mataji had posted in the devotees group about Yamuna Devi Das Mataji.
Yeah. Yeah.
She was chanting, so perfected in chanting, she was even remembering Krishna in her sleep, and she realized that she is a Manjari in Golok Vrindavan. So,
Yeah.
so that much that's the power of hearing and chanting.
Yeah. Yeah, and something that Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport is that one thing that in the previous verse we heard how Krishna is present as super soul in everything. So here in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, and since it has been ascertained that the Lord is the super soul of everything, he should therefore be heard and glorified everywhere and always. So yeah, that is really important because he is the super soul, so therefore he be heard and glorified everywhere and always. That is the special duty of human being. And then another thing that Srila Prabhupada writes very important. So actually speaking, without hearing appropriately, we won't be able to understand that the super soul is present. We won't be able to perceive, right? So here Srila Prabhupada writes, one who has perfectly heard from the perfect source becomes convinced about the all-pervading personality of Godhead and thus becomes enthusiastic in glorifying the Lord. So without hearing, we cannot be convinced about the presence of the super soul everywhere, and then we will not be able to actually enthusiastic enough to chant, actually, to glorify the Lord. So to have the super enthusiasm, we need to hear from the appropriate authorities appropriately. That is only then and only then we can chant all the time, right? Okay, so let's quickly do the next verse also. Someone wants to read?
I can read, Mataji.
Yeah, go ahead.
37, right, Mataji?
Yes, last verse.
Shivanti Bhagavata Atmana Satam Kathamritam Sravan Puteshu Samritam Punanti Te Visaya Vidvasitashayam Brajanti Charanan Saroruhantikam. Hari Bol. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hari Bol. Those who should drink to oral
Reception.
fully filled with the nectarian masses of Lord Krishna, the beloved of the devotee, purify the polluted aim of life, known as material enjoyment, and thus go back to Godhead, to the lotus feet of Him, the personality of Godhead. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The suffering of human society are due to a polluted aim of life, namely lording it over the material resources. The more human society engages in the exploration of undeveloped material resources for sense gratification, the more it will be entrapped by the illusory material energy of the Lord. material energy of the Lord, and thus the distress of the world will be intensified in a state of diminished. The human necessity of life are fully supplied by the Lord in the shape of food, grain, milk, fruit, wood, stone, sugar, silk, jewels, cotton, salt, water, vegetables, etc. in sufficient quantity to feed and care for the human race of the world, as well as the living being on each and every planet within the universe. The supply source is complete, and only a little energy by the human beings is required to get his necessities into the proper channel. There is no need of machines and tools or use plants for artificially creating comfort of life. Life is never made comfortable by artificial need, but by plain living and high thinking. The highest perfectional thinking for human society is suggested here by Sukadev Goswami, namely sufficiently hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. For man in this stage of Kali, when they have lost the perfect vision of life. This Srimad Bhagavatam is the torchlight by which to see the real path. Srila Jiva Goswami, Prabhupada, and Prabhupada has commented on the Kathamritam mentioned in this verse, and has indicated Srimad Bhagavatam to be the nectarian message of personality of Godhead. By sufficient hearing of sufficient hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam, the polluted aim of life, namely putting it over matter, will subside, and the people in general in all parts of the world will be able to live a peaceful life of knowledge and bliss. For a pure devotee of the Lord, any topic in relation with his name, fame, quality, intors, etc. are all
quality,
etc. are all pleasing, and because such topics have been approved by great devotee like Narad, Hanuman, Nanda Maharaj, and other inhabitants, and Vrindavan, certainly such messages are transcendental and pleasing to the heart and soul. And by the constant hearing of the message of the Bhagavad Gita and later of Srimad Bhagavatam, one is assured herein by Srila Sukadev Goswami that he will reach the personality of Godhead and render him transcendental loving service in the spiritual planet of the name Golok Vrindavan, which resembles a huge lotus flower. Thus, by the process of bhakti yoga, directly accepted as suggested in this verse, by sufficient hearing of the transcendental message of Lord, the material contamination is directly eliminated without once attempting to contemplate the impersonal Virat conceptions of the Lord. By the practicing bhakti yoga, if the performer is not purified from the material contamination, but he must be a pseudo devotee. For such an impostor, there is no remedy for being freed from material entanglement. Hari Bol. Thus end the Bhakti Vedanta purport of the second canto, second chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled "The Lord in the Heart." Hari Bol.
Okay, you want to say something?
Mataji, आप ही बताइए.
No, anything that you might have struck you, any one thing?
Glorification, the Bhagavatam, So how Bhagavatam is important for human being, hearing and listening. I mean, yes, hearing is very important and implementing.
Yeah. So in the previous verse, we heard about the hearing, how it is very important, essential to hear about, glorify, and remember the Supreme Lord, right? Always and everywhere. So in this verse, it is speaking about that what happens, what is the result that happens by hearing about the Supreme Lord, by that oral reception, what happens. So that message is like nectar, and which is very, very dear to the devotees. And actually what happens by hearing, because we are all conditioned in this material world, conditioned and have the tendency to enjoy and fruity mentality, too much pollution in our heart. So that gets purified in the heart by hearing Krishna Katha, right? Sharnatam Svakatha Krishna Punya Sharvan Kirtana Hridyantasto Hiya Bhadrani Vidunoti Suritratam, right? And then Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Loke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. And how does that taste for hearing develops? Who will tell? How do we develop the taste of hearing, taste for hearing?
By serving the pure devotees.
Yeah, and that's the verse in our second chapter, first canto, Perfect Prabhu, that Shavnatam Shushrushu Shardhanasya Vasudev Katha Ruchi Syan Mahatsevya Vipra Punya Tirtha Nisevanat, right? When we serve the Bhagavata, then that we develop the taste for hearing, because what happens is when we serve the devotees, Bhagavatas, then what happens is we receive their blessings. And by those blessings and mercy, we develop the taste. So what is bhakti? Bhakti comes from a bhakta. And what is that? Bhakti is actually, I mean, one has to have some taste in order to have bhakti, right? So that is bhakti is serving, and that serving, it starts with hearing Krishna Katha, that taste for hearing. And if we don't develop that taste, then our propensity to have material enjoyment is not going to go away, as Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, right? And this very nice sentence that Srila Prabhupada writes here: life is never made comfortable by artificial needs, but by plain living and high thinking. The highest perfectional thinking for human society is suggested here by Sukadeva Goswami, namely sufficiently hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. So without that, our necessities, we may think of that, oh, I need this big house, I need this house in this place, and I need this and that. That is never ever going to end, actually. If I get this thing, okay, I desire a house. If I get a house, then I will have different needs to be fulfilled. That is never ending. So unless and until we get satisfaction from hearing Krishna Katha, the topic of transcendence, we will not feel that satisfaction or the fulfillment of our necessities. So the external comforts are not actually going to give us complete satisfaction. It is only and only the glorification, hearing the nectar of Krishna Katha, that can give us satisfaction. And also it could be, as Srila Prabhupada says, that it could be in the relation of Krishna's name, fame, qualities, or pastime. Any of those things, doesn't have to be one simple thing, or anything. It can be anything about Krishna actually is nectar, and it pacifies our hankering for sense enjoyment, actually. So that is how, by hearing that, we will cut the notes of our fruitive enjoyment tendency, and we can develop that love and dedication for Krishna just by hearing. Because this is what, like, we are to, purpose of human form of life is to know who we really are and understand our relationship with Krishna and act in that relationship. Or unless and until I know about Krishna, how can I have love, or how can I do something for him? Only when I love him, then I will do something. So I will develop that love by hearing about him, knowing about him, what kind of personality he is, what he does, and what he looks like, where he lives, and what it will be if I go to him, right? What will it be like? And that comes in Bhagavatam. And the principles we hear in Bhagavad Gita, and the practical exhibition of those principles we see in Srimad Bhagavatam, right? All right, so this second chapter is completed. So let's do quickly a little bit of third chapter, just maybe 1 or 2 verses, and then, yeah, I think the first verse, because then 2 to 7 are together, and that is big purport also, I think. Yeah, let's just do one verse and then we will end. I have something
I can read.
to go out. So somebody has something before we start this chapter, Pure Devotional Service, the Change of Heart. It's very beautiful chapter. So let's try to, have more attention and application. Okay. So somebody has something before we go to this chapter third.
Mataji, Hare Krishna Mataji, probably next class, probably we can revise like at a high level chapter.
Yeah. So I just am starting just to start, basically. I don't want to do the revision right now. So everybody just try to go through the first and second chapter on your own. And next week on Monday, we can try to review those chapters for first 15 minutes and then continue. Is that okay with everyone?
Yes, Mataji.
Yes, Mataji.
Yeah, okay. Okay, if nobody has anything, so let's do this verse number 1. Anybody wants to read?
Yeah, I can read, Mataji.
Sure, go ahead. And that very beautiful chapter, Pure Devotional Service, the change in heart. That is what all we want, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Mataji.
Chapter 3, Pure Devotional Service, the Change in Heart. Text 1, Shri Shuka Uvacha. Evam itan nigadit
Nigaditam.
nigaditam prashtavan yad bhavan
Prashtavan. So the
prashtavan
right? Van. Yeah.
prashtavan yad bhavan mam nrinam yan mriyam manam mananam manuyeshu manishnam
Manusheshu.
manusheshu manishnanam
Manishinam.
manusheshu manishanam
Manishina.
manishinam.
Yeah. It's like tongue-tied words. Yeah.
Thora difficult. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Shukadev Goswami said, Maharaj Parikshit, as you have inquired from me as to the duty of the intelligent man who is on the threshold of death, so I have answered you. Purport. In human society, all over the world, there are millions and billions of men and women, and almost all of them are less intelligent because they have very little knowledge of spirit soul. Almost all of them have a wrong conception of life, for they identify themselves with the gross and subtle material body, which they are not, in fact. They may be situated in different high and low positions in the estimation of a human society, but one should know definitely that unless one inquires about his own self beyond and body and the mind, all his activities in human life are total failures. Therefore, out of thousands of men, one may inquire about his spirit self and thus consult the revealed scriptures like Vedanta Sutras, Bhagavad Gita, and Srimad Bhagavatam. But in spite of reading and hearing such scriptures, unless one is in touch with a realized spiritual master, he cannot actually realize the real nature of self, etc. And out of thousands and hundreds of thousands of men, someone may know what Lord Krishna is in fact. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 20, chapter 20, verse 122 to 123, it is said that Lord Krishna, out of his causeless mercy, prepared the Vedic literature in the incarnation of Vyasadeva for reading by the intelligent class of men in a human society, which is almost totally forgetful of the genuine relation with Krishna, which is almost totally forgetful of the genuine relation with Krishna. Even such an intelligent class of men may be forgetful in their relation with Lord. The whole Bhakti Yoga process is therefore a revival of the lost relation. This revival which is obtained only out of the evolutionary cycle of 1,400,000 species of life. Task opportunity. Not all human beings are intelligent, so the importance of human life is not always understood. Therefore, Manishinam, meaning thoughtful, is particularly used here. Manishinam person like Maharaj Parikshit must therefore take to lotus feet of Lord Krishna and fully engage himself in devotional service, hearing and chanting of the holy name and pastimes of the Lord, which are all Hari Kathamrita. This action is especially recommended when one is preparing for death. Hari Bol.
Very good. Yeah, you want to say something?
Yes. Yes. Kind of summarizes everything.
Yeah.
So it tells like Shukadev Goswami is answering Parikshit Maharaj about the question that he was asking about the person who's dying. And here Srila Prabhupada in purport is explaining how there are very few people who are intelligent, and those people who are only questions about like the purpose of the life and the knowledge of the spirit soul is known to very few people. Like there's thousands and thousands of them who actually inquire about themselves and the spirit self, and how they can, even if they get to read it from those thousands and thousands, like one person in those who reads it can barely understand Krishna. They need the who's a realized spiritual master to guide them. And how the scriptures have been created by Krishna's incarnation Vyasadeva himself to guide the people, the ignorant people. But even like we don't understand how important it is that it's even hard to get a human form out of 8,400,000 species, and then even in that human being, if it's not easy to be born as intelligent and questioning about yourself, about the soul, and then understanding Krishna and the real purpose, like getting involved in the devotional service, hearing, chanting. So these are what the actions which are recommended when one is preparing for the death.
Yeah, thank you. So this verse is focusing on the duty of intelligent men. Actually, what Parikshit Maharaj has asked us that question in the first chapter, right? Or toward, and also towards the end of first canto, 19th chapter. So basically, intelligent person is who can actually inquire about why am I suffering, who am I, and what is the purpose of my life, all those questions, right? Thato Brahma Jigyasa, that is the goal of human form of life, and to know who we really are and what is our relationship with Krishna and how should we act in that relationship. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes one very beautiful sentence here. They may be situated in different high and low positions in the estimation of human society, but one should know, so this is to be noted here, one should know definitely that unless one inquires about his own self beyond the body and the mind, all his activities in human life are total failures. So at every moment, we should really actually check what we are doing. Am I doing it for whom am I doing it? Just for this body or for my real self? What is my real self-interest, right? Actually, what is our real self-interest is actually the interest of Krishna, basically. So that is why we say that when we chant, it is service to Krishna, because Krishna really wants us to come back to him. In one class I was hearing, I think it was Shripad Indra Prabhu, who was speaking about what is real compassion actually. Real compassion is that, and that is the self-compassion also. That is actually to fulfill the interest of Krishna by turning to him and working towards going back to him. That is real compassion, and that is towards ourselves as well as towards others. So Krishna is really wanting us to come back to him. He is feeling that separation from us. That is what he was saying. And which is true, actually, just like a parent wants the child to be back, the same way Krishna wants us to be back. So this is what is actually here. But one should know definitely that unless one inquires about his own self beyond the body and mind, all the activities in human life are total failures. And yesterday, the purport that we read, actually, if we read that carefully again and again, it will really help us to come to that spiritual level. Actually, I mean, theoretically, we all know very well. I mean, but realization and experience and that perception has not happened to the extent that we want it to be. So that purport that we read yesterday, actually, that can really help us to perceive. So it requires a lot of reflection, not just doing the activities by our hands and mind and intelligence, but reflection according to the whole big purport that Srila Prabhupada gave in that verse yesterday that we read, verse number 35 of chapter 2. Yeah, so that is and also this, actually the bhakti process is basically reviving our lost relationship with Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada is paraphrasing that verse of 7th chapter Bhagavad Gita 7.3. Manushanam sahasreshu kashchit yati siddhaye yatataam api siddhanam kaschin mam veti tattvataha. So Krishna Tattva, and we are very fortunate that we have Srila Prabhupada, who is actually taking us to this knowing the tattva of Krishna, actually. And generally people don't like philosophy. We like the pastimes more than philosophy, but philosophy is also important, because by philosophy we'll understand what is the tattva, and then whatever we do, it won't be a sentimentalism or fanaticism. It will be based on the tattva, actually, and then we will not fall down, or we will not degrade, or we will not just do niyamagraha, means just doing things for the sake of doing. Once we know the tattva, then whatever we will do, it will be appropriately done, not out of niyamagraha or not just for following, but for doing it with full understanding, right? And then when we do something with full understanding, then we will not give it up, or it will not be just sentimentalism, right? All right, dear devotees, it's 8:10 and I really have to do something. I mean, I'm so sorry, Tuesdays are something. I have to go drop the garlands. So I'm sorry about short time, but what to do? But if you all want to continue, you all can continue. I can go. I can be on the phone in hearing mode. Haribol?
Yeah, Mataji, I'm okay either way. I don't know what other devotees would like.
Haribol, everybody?
Yeah, I'm okay either way. I don't know what other devotees want.
The next one is very difficult to even read, Mataji. We need you, so I guess
Yeah, we will read
can
with you,
wait for
Mataji. Next week.
It's very
Yeah, we
difficult
wait
for
for you.
Mataji. It's from 2 to 7 is all together.
It's a long purport, Mataji.
Okay, so thank you all very much. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrind ki jai, our beloved Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Vancha Kalpa Kripa.